Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats weekly podcast episode number 79. I am your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan. If he can't do it, somebody can. Not. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden vessels all over the universe. Welcome to the podcast, folks. Great to have you. If you're a first-time visitor, you're in for a great time. If you're a repeat visitor, you already know the gig. This is where you get your wooden boat fix for the week, folks. Featured segment today is an interview with Korie and Tupper Griffith. Korie and Tupper live in Port Townsend, Washington. They've got a great story to share, and they own a really cool boat, so you're going to want to stick around for that interview. Well, this is a podcast where I encourage you to get in the game, that is the wooden boat game. Lots of ways to do it, but one way is to subscribe to my podcast so that you're automatically notified each Thursday when the weekly episode is available. You can do that in iTunes under the podcast section there if you look for Hooked on Wooden Boats. Or if you have podcatcher software. I know it sounds pretty technical. It's not really that technical. But if you have podcatcher software on your smartphone, your MP3 player, etc., you can subscribe there by just searching for the podcast. The other way is you can actually subscribe to my e-newsletter. If you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe, give me your name, first name, last name, and your email address. You'll get my almost monthly newsletter. In fact, we had 3 new subscribers this past week. Welcome to the newsletter, Marty Warline, Matthew Peterson, and William Sharnick. And I should put out a disclaimer that I have no clue how to pronounce last names. So I just kind of guess, so hopefully nobody's offended there. But anyway, welcome to the e-newsletter. And I just sent out the March newsletter yesterday, and I actually requested that you shoot me an email, or actually even better, a voicemail. If you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail, you can leave me a message right from your computer and tell me how you're getting in the wooden boat game, what you're doing to get involved. As I mentioned before, there's lots of ways to do it. Subscribe to my podcast, subscribe to Wooden Boat Magazine, go to a Wooden Boat Festival, buy wooden boat plans and start building a boat, get a book on wooden boats, buy a wooden boat kit, go to a local wooden boat shop or school. Just go buy a piece of wood and feel it, touch it, and visualize in your mind how if you bought several pieces of that wood, you could be floating on it out in a beautiful blue ocean somewhere. I mean, this is fun stuff, folks. So get in the game. This past Friday, I had the privilege to go spend the day in Port Townsend like I do once every month or two. Had a great time. Started out at the Scamp Camp number 3 at the Northwest Maritime Center. 6 boats being built there. And Howard Rice was kind of running the show along with Scott Jones, the boat shop manager. So I got to do some interviews, take some photos of the Scamp, dream about my Scamp, which hopefully I'm going to be buying the kit here pretty soon, although we just got a tax bill, which doesn't help a whole lot. Had a great time at the Scamp Camp, then did the interview with Korie and Tupper, and also interviewed Scott Jones at the boat shop at the Northwest Maritime Center, and also Captain Joshua Berger, who is one of the two captains of the Schooner Adventurous. So it was a really great time. I love going over there, connecting with people, and it's kind of like my home away from home now. So that was pretty fun. Well, I'd like to I'd like to read some listener feedback. And to do so, I've got to log into my computer here. Just take me a second. This is from Trey Witcher, who is from Texas. He wrote this to me recently. Dan, thanks for the email as well as your podcast. I started listening sometime around your 5th or 6th episode and have been listening ever since. We, which is my wife, 2-year-old son, and daughter due in July, live in Central Texas, and I got into building due to a desire to have something to fish from. I ended up with a 16-foot fishing kayak that was designed by a local boat builder. It is somewhat of a hybrid in that most of the boat is stitch and glue okumi, and the tops are strip-built western red cedar. The cockpit is 6 feet long, leaving me with roughly 10 feet of storage space for extended overnight trips. It has plenty of room for my tent, chair, and cooking equipment, but weighs less than the plastic yaks my fellow fishermen have to drag up and down the river. Standing 6'8", I needed a boat that could handle my size, but I also wanted an efficient, fast boat. So far, she has performed exactly as I expected. Unfortunately for my wife, halfway through the build, I have already picked out my next boat to work on. It is a strip-built design based off of Verlin Kruger's boat, but we'll have to wait until my daughter arrives. In the meantime, I'm starting Warren Jordan's baby tender for our daughter, which is a little boat that's basically a baby crib. It's pretty cool. Finally, all of your comments and interviews about lap strakes make sense. Thanks again for your podcast. Your hard work and affability represent our Christian faith well. Take care, Trey. Trey, thanks for those kind comments. I really appreciate it. And your comments about my Christian faith, too, I appreciate that. Because I've mentioned before, I am a man of faith. So thank you very much for writing in, and I hope your daughter safely arrives in July and you get on with your next boat. Sounds pretty cool. Shoot me some pictures when you get a chance. We are going to move on to the interview now with Korie and Tupper Griffith of Port Townsend. And their son Owen was at the interview too, and Owen is about 2.5, so you may hear him in the background. He was really good. So we sat and chatted for like almost an hour, and he did great. So anyway, take it away, Korie and Tupper and Owen. Okay, it is March 15th, 2013, and I'm sitting with Korie and Tupper and Owen Griffith. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Did I get the last name correct?
Yep,
Griffith?
correct.
Okay, Griffith. I don't know why that's hard to say.
It is.
Griffith.
Griffith.
It's trying to say Griffin or something. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. I met Korie last month when I was in Port Townsend. I happened to see the building that says Schooner Martha Foundation here at Point Hudson. We're sitting right outside there, and I didn't know Martha had a shop here. So I went in and met Korie, and we started talking. I said, hey, Korie, maybe down the road we could get together and talk some more about what you guys have done and stuff. So anyway, let's start with you, Tupper. Tell me about where you're from and what you've been up to, or as a kid, what were you doing and stuff like that.
Well, originally I was born down in San Diego and moved up to Oregon when I was really young. Grew up in Eugene. And didn't do too much boating, actually, but I had uncles down in Southern California that were surfing in their whole lives. Taught me how to handle the waves and be in the ocean. And then after growing up in Eugene, I went to school down in San Diego for a short time and got heavily involved with surfing. And did that was my first experience with sailing for the most part. And then I was doing part of a crew on the Schooner Kelpie. And that's where I learned my basic sailing skills. And I
Is that
actually
an older schooner? Or?
the Schooner Kelpie, yeah, she was built in the 20s.
Okay.
And I'm not up on what's been going on with her lately. Last I knew, she was in the Dana Point, Newport Harbor area, somewhere down there.
She's a wooden schooner?
Old wooden schooner, yeah.
Okay.
And so then, after college, I did a stint in the Coast Guard. And
you did?
Worked at the Motor Lifeboat Station in Tillamook Bay in Garibaldi.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Cool.
And was further immersed in working around the ocean and being in the ocean.
Did you go on any of the search and rescue boats?
We did quite a few. Yeah,
Really?
I was a crewman on the 44-foot, the old 44-foot steel motor lifeboats before they got a hold of the newer models that are a lot faster.
Back in 1975, I worked at Ilwaco Boat Works.
Oh, right. Yes.
And we had a Coast Guard boat called the Invincible there.
Yes.
And they were repairing I think it was a steel hull and aluminum deck or a house, and they were repairing the line between those two or something. So
it's got to be hard to maintain.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, after the Coast Guard, I was mostly just involved with surfing. I had some friends that had sailboats on the lake around Eugene, different lakes around Eugene, and just did summertime sailing stuff. And got into house carpentry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then about 10 years ago now, a little more than 10 years ago, I was invited to crew on the Schooner Martha, and that really hooked me back into the sailing world. Of course, we went up to the islands on a beautiful week, and
so you came up from Oregon.
Came up from Portland at that point, just to come up for a long week of sailing.
And your sister Holly, Robert Darcy's wife, had invited you
on the
up.
Schooner Martha. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And they just needed some crew, so they got me hooked in, and I've completely loved it ever since.
So you moved up here then?
Yeah, I took some time and fixed up the house that I owned in Portland, and was able to sell that, and so I moved up here not knowing exactly what my plan was, but ended up I had met Miles McCoy, the previous owner of Sharon, a few years before that, and had never really even expected to own a boat like the Sharon L.
Yeah.
But as Miles, he had brought the Sharon L down to have some work done about the same time Robert was having the big underwater work done on the Martha, and Miles needed some help in the yard, so I just volunteered and just wanted to get to know the boat a little bit, and just kind of jumped in to help him out a little bit. And so that's how I came to know the Sharon L.
Okay. So how'd you meet Korie?
We had the year that the Martha was hauled out for her big underwater, for everything under the water. Korie was still on doing a lot of work on Adventurous, and she kept poking her nose around to see what we were doing over on the Martha, and we were kind of scouting each other out.
I first came for the boat, and then I started stalking one of the crew members.
Yeah. What year was that?
That was, what year was it?
2008,
something like that. Yeah, that was the 08 restoration on Martha. So yeah.
Cool.
So that was then, and we just started.
We had our first date 4 days before the adventurous sailing season started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then you were gone for a while.
Yeah, I'd be gone for a while.
So. 6 months or something.
Well, 2 weeks.
Kind of in and
2
out.
weeks off.
Okay.
So
I see.
Not a very long way.
Yeah. Very cool. So, Korie, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin, the suburbs of Milwaukee, a town called New Berlin, and zero boating in our family, aside from some pontoon boats on the lakes and a little bit of fishing, but didn't grow up boating at all. And so, of course, like like most people that grow up in the middle of the country, I always dreamed of moving to one of the coasts. So I in college, I went to college in Wisconsin, and during the summer I ended up going down to the Florida Keys to work at a Boy Scout camp, of all places. And that's really when I got involved in boating and was working with the Boy Scouts.
In the Florida Keys?
In the Keys, yeah. So I spent a summer there, went back, graduated, and then went back to the camp for the better part of a year before I went back to grad school. And then
What were you studying in grad school?
In grad school, I studied chemical oceanography and kind of how the ocean and climate change are linked. And but I really just sat at my desk a lot, daydreaming about boating.
Really?
But I finished my degree, and I think ultimately that's really what led me into sail training, because during my stint in grad school, I did a teaching assistant position to earn a stipend, and I loved the teaching.
Where was that at?
UC Davis in California.
Okay.
And it was, and I had done a little bit of that at the Boy Scout camp, but that was more adventure-based, not necessarily education-based. And so this was like the first formal teaching I had done, and I loved it. And so I was like, I want to teach. And boy, and then I learned about the fellowship programs. I was like, oh my gosh, teaching on a boat, what a great platform.
Yeah.
You do it, silly.
I'm looking at your breath.
Oh, yeah, look at my son is looking at his reflection in my glasses.
Yeah, I didn't at the onset of the podcast that Owen is 2.5. So.
Yeah, so he's being very good so far.
He's been really good, yeah.
So after grad school, I got a job with the, what's the acronym? Simi Tall Ship Expeditions, which is based out of Long Beach, California. Really? And at the time, they were running a boat. Well, they weren't running it. They were leasing a boat during the week called the Pilgrim of Newport, which has now been renamed the Spirit of Dana Point. And maybe she's sitting next to Kelpie down there. I don't know. But, so we would do educational programs based on that boat, and then during the week, and then they bought the Tullamook, and I helped deliver that boat from Seattle down to Long Beach, which was really my first open ocean sailing. And
so were you captain at that point?
No, I was crew. I was an educator, deckhand, trying to stay one step ahead of the kids. Yeah. I was learning sailing as I was teaching it.
That was your first blue water cruise?
That was my first blue water cruise, yeah. It was great. I met some amazing sailors and who really ultimately helped shape, the sailor I became eventually. I mean, but even at that point, it wasn't going to be my career. I wasn't thinking like, yes, and then someday I'll be a tall ship captain, or, I mean, I didn't even have aspirations to become a mate at that, my first stint. Really? I thought, well, this is something I'll do for a couple of years, get it out of my system, and then, go be a geologist and oceanographer. But boy, it really stuck. I met amazing people. I ended up bouncing around boats. I stayed with that program for 6 seasons, and then and went to sail the East Coast, the Caribbean. I did a boat trip from Lake Michigan, from Milwaukee on the Dennis Sullivan, all the way through the St. Lawrence Seaway, Bermuda, Bahamas. So, I just did a big circuit on that.
Were you advancing in rank throughout this time?
Exactly.
As far as your responsibilities? So what does that look like in terms of positions on a big ship, on a sailing ship?
Yeah, well, when you come in as a brand new person, which a lot of these sail training programs, you start out as volunteer. I was lucky enough to be working with a program. I actually earned a little bit of money. Yeah. But it was enough to pay off my college loan, so that was a good stepping stone in that. Put all that behind me and keep moving forward. Yeah, on Tullamook it was a big crew. There were 15 of us. It was a big ship. So there were a lot of different ways to go. You could go more into the education world, or you could go more into the deckhand, and I just really loved the ship side of things.
That was on the Tullamook?
On the Tullamook, yeah. Okay. So which is not a wooden boat, by the way.
That's okay.
It's steel, but she looks wooden from a distance. It looks like an old pirate ship, that's what everybody calls her. But,
okay.
You could go from deckhand to bosun to second mate to first mate. So there was a big hierarchy. So it wasn't just like a smaller boat where you're a deckhand or you're the captain. And I just showed a lot of excitement for learning about the deck side of things, and so had some great mentors and worked my way into bosun and on up. By the time I left there, I was the bosun second mate. And while I was down there is when I met Wayne Chimenti. I don't know if you've interviewed him yet, but I'm sure you know him. And He was a adventurous skipper for 13 years. He came down to Tullamore to do a season with his wife and daughter.
Now, where was that at?
It's still out of Long Beach.
Okay,
she's always down there in the Channel Islands, and so he's the one that first told me about Adventurous. So,
really?
And then the following year, he called down looking for a relief mate. Turns out it was for a women's trip on Adventurous. He didn't even know I had my license, so I called him back right away.
You had your captain's license at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I had got a limited guide's license working for the Boy Scouts. I just didn't have the time or tonnage at that point to get my license. I was testing for it when I was on Tullamore, and long story short, that's Wayne brought me up here for a relief mate position, and I kept going to work on other boats at the same time, but I'd always come back to Adventurous.
Really?
So I did that for a couple years.
You had moved up here at that time then?
Well, I wouldn't say that yet. I'm still living out of a bag, but my duffel bag. But I did a stint in 03 and then 04 as mate, and then I thought, well, I'll try something different, and I went to work for NOAA for a year on one of their oceanography vessels based out of Seattle. While I was the MacArthur II, which we actually just saw. We were down in Newport.
They moved that base off of Lake Union, didn't they?
They did, and they're down in Newport now. And we were just down there a few weeks back, just for a little vacation, and there was my old ship. So I called up an old deckhand who's still working, and got to say hi to him. I did that for a year, and during that time was when Wayne was talking about bringing me on as a captain, and he was looking to step down and move on with his life onto other things, and so by 06 I was moving into that position.
Wow. Now do they typically have two captains at a time for the ship?
Actually, at that time they had three, and they had quite a stagger of the three of them throughout the year.
Okay. So who were the three at that time then?
So Wayne Schimenti, and then George Hill and Gordon Sims were the three captains. And George has since retired and moved on. And Gordon, I was actually involved with the Dolores Jackson. I saw that you had just interviewed Mr. Jackson. So Gordon's been working with him getting that boat sailing. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, so lots of infamy in the adventurous captainship. So big shoes to fill.
Were you the first female captain?
They had some relief captains in the Sound Experience era, but as far as I know, I was the first full-time captain.
So what drew you to the adventurous?
The community around the ship, which I know you've interviewed Daniel and are going to interview Joshua, so you'll hear that word come up a lot.
Yeah, right. So, let's pause here for just a second. Okay, we're back.
Okay.
Now where were we, Korie?
The truck has passed. Where were we? Oh, the adventurous community.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's an amazing community.
Was incredible, huh?
Yeah, I mean, not just the adventurous, but this town, and I kind of grew up in the suburbs, so I hadn't really been exposed to towns like this, except on little vacationing trips where you're like, oh, look at this cool town, then you drive through, and I came here and I was like, wow, my people. So and the surroundings, you have the water and the mountains and just the area and the weather and but again, just the people, the community around Adventurous, and I love her mission, and it's a good split between empowering, well, not just kids but adults too, to be able to sail a big ship like that, as well as teaching them about the waters here. So they'll learn to love it and do something about it. Take care of it.
So then, how long were you captain?
I did 4 years driving, and then I stayed on one more winter. I think that's right. Okay. To overlap with Captain Joshua during phase 2 of her Centennial Restoration Project.
And then you were with child at that time. Yeah,
well, during the first restoration phase, I was pregnant, and I was due in June. So so by the end of April there, I was ready to step away from that project. And then had Owen in the summer, and then returned that winter part-time, helping with the restoration transition, and since I've been on the ship committee as a volunteer, just kind of helping where I can. I'm doing a volunteer project for them now, and I was able to drive last summer for the girls' trip, which was a lot of fun. I hope to be able to do that again. So gotta
And you're driving for a local sightseeing boat here, too, in the summer.
So I started working for Puget Sound Express. Owen was about 9 months old, and I realized, I really miss the water.
Yeah.
So I started talking with Pete Hankey, who owns Puget Sound Express, and his wife, and he was a couple days shy of full-time captains throughout the week for the summer. So I came on and filled in a little bit here and there that first summer, and then last summer we're driving full-time, and we'll do that again. And
is that a big twin-screw steel boat?
Exactly, yeah.
So that's
and he owns two.
A little different than driving adventurous around, huh?
Very different, yeah.
Is that hard to adjust to?
Not really.
Yeah,
not really. Yeah,
it's just different.
Like Pete said, if you can park adventurous, I could teach you how to drive this boat in 5 minutes. So it took a little longer than 5 minutes, but yeah, she's very maneuverable, and the passengers are always amazed at how we can parallel park, and I was like, and so they were like, wow, that was amazing. I was like, well, most of it's the boat.
Bow thrusters on it?
No bow thrusters.
No bow thrusters.
Yeah,
okay. Twin screw is pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and that style of vessel just slides over.
Yeah,
so.
very cool.
Yeah, so that's been fun to be able to have a day job on the water, but also kind of carrying on with the same attitude of adventurous too, where you're taking people out on the water and you're showing them the beauty of this area, and it's a lot of locals, but it's also international. There's people from all over the world that come on this trip to see whales and see the islands. And
where do you guys take the boat out here?
Well, there's two trips. He has two boats, and one of them just does 4-hour whale watching trip, so it's go find whales and come home. And then there's the all-day trip, which spends 2 hours in Friday Harbor, so you really get a nice tour of the islands and hopefully see whales either before or after Friday Harbor. So, but yeah, they're up in the islands. Take them up there. Yeah. So, although every now and then there'll be some whales down our way. In fact, he's doing gray whale trips now, which is down near Everett. So around Whidbey Island, we get gray whales that come in.
And they start from here?
Well, it's on their migration from Baja to...
the boats start from up here?
They start from here and
go to Everett.
And then we go down there. Yeah, yeah. It's like a 5-hour trip.
What's the cruising speed on those?
Glacier Spirit does... I guess she's more like 13 to 15. And then... but Olympus can get up to... 20, 22.
Really? That's a pretty good wake, probably.
Glacier Spirit. Olympus is more of a planing hull. She can kind of get up on steps, so she's not as bad. But, cool. But yes, I'm one of those boaters now. Yeah. I got to slow down for all those little sailboats.
That's funny. So, let's pause here. Okay.
He's fine.
Is he okay?
Yeah,
we're just checking on Owen.
Checking on Owen.
Owen's okay. Okay. False alarm.
Figuring out how the boat trailer works. So.
Yeah. So you guys own a boat called the Sharon L.
Sharon L.
So tell us, for those listening and also for me, tell me about this boat. What is this boat?
Well, Sharon L. is a Cape Cod catboat. And she was built back in 1933, or launched in 33. By Blanchard Boat Yards in Seattle. So she's been in the area her entire life, and she was designed by Fenwick Williams. I guess my understanding is that it was when Fenwick Williams was still working for John Alden, so that the plans are actually on an Alden design sheet. Really? But Fenwick Williams has his signature on it. So, and there were some modifications when she was built, and I haven't figured out all those modifications.
The original plans?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Most catboats have the mast stepped right up in the stem, right up forward there.
Oh.
And Sharon L's mast is stepped back a bay, I think one bay. And then she also has originally she was built with a 4-foot bowsprit and maybe a bigger main and a small jib to kind of balance things out.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, at some point, Miles McCoy, the previous owner, he's changed the sail size, the mainsail size, a few times. I'm not sure exactly what all he did, but he ended up with a very large main and extended the bowsprit. So there's now an 8-foot bowsprit on there with a little bit bigger of a jib, a little bit bigger head sail.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that cat boats were like that until I really started looking into some of the old fishing history on the East Coast of them. And there's a few pictures where you see cat boats with a great big bowsprit out forward. A really, really nice old picture of a cat boat that was actually a sword fisherman.
Oh, really?
And so it's kind of fun. And she's very unique, and she's a very fun boat to sail.
Yeah.
She's large for most cat boats. She's 28 feet on deck and 40 feet overall. She takes up all of my 40-foot slip.
Really?
And 13 feet wide, 12 and a half feet wide.
Wow, she's a beamy boat.
She's beamy.
Cat boats are
cat boats
beamy.
are very short. Cat boats are kind of
Their signature.
beamy for their size, but they're fairly shallow and they're very shoal draft boats too.
Yeah. So what makes a boat a cat boat?
I think it's just that
Is it the
short,
design?
that short design or seemingly short design.
Short and
very
stout.
short and wide. She's got a cut-off transom, which is pretty wide back at the transom. Nice and roomy cockpit, which is great. Happens to be great with having a 2-year-old.
The playpen.
Yeah.
It's very much like a playpen. The combing is very protective around the backside there, and I actually lived on board the first year that I owned her. And she's most cat boats, if they have a little cabin at all, you're crawling around on your hands and knees down below. But I can actually, I'm not 6 foot, but I can stand stand straight up when I'm in the cabin.
Oh, really?
And walk around.
She got a V berth down below.
She's got a V berth up forward, and then in the main salon, there's a nice little bunk, barely 2 people wide.
Barely a double bed.
Barely a double bed. We're trying to make some modifications there.
Okay.
and a nice little galley area and a tiny little head up on the port side.
Yeah.
And she's very comfortable. There's no varnish down below. It's all paint, which is one of the things I really like because it's very easy to maintain.
Bright.
It's very light colors, so it's very bright down below, and very, very cheerful and
super cozy.
Very cozy.
Yeah.
Just
Nice.
with a little wood stove going in the winter.
Oh, you got a little wood stove in there? Oh, that's cool.
When I met Tupper, he was living aboard that winter.
Oh, is that
and,
right?
I first came aboard, like, oh,
This feels pretty
it's so
good.
cute. Coming from big boats, I was like, oh, it's this little boat,
With big dog.
with a very big dog on board.
Oh, really? Got a big dog, too. Huh? So who was that boat originally built for, do you know?
It was built for a gentleman named Lassiter. My understanding is that he was a banker over in Seattle, and Sharon L was the L in Lassiter. Sharon was Lassiter's daughter. So he named the boat after his daughter.
Okay.
And apparently he only had her for a couple of years, though.
Oh, really?
And the next thing that I am aware of in Sharon L's life is when Miles McCoy was a young man. He likes to tell the story of he used to play hooky during school, run down to the docks and do whatever he could down there. And found Sharon L for sale down there. Ran home and I guess he was about, I'm not sure how old he was, but this was 1946, right after World War II. Ran home and told his dad all about her, and his dad ended up buying the Sharon L for his family.
Oh, really?
And then as Miles grew up, he obviously enjoyed sailing on Sharon. And along with his family, and I think it was around late 50s, early 60s. He moved up to Orcas Island, where he still is, and built a house up on West Sound. And Sharon had a mooring out in West Sound from the early 60s up until I got a hold of her back in 5 years ago now.
Wow.
So
you've had her for 5 years, huh?
I've had her. I know. I was thinking about that last fall. I was like, I've had this boat for 5 years now.
Yeah.
So
she's yellow cedar on oak.
She's yellow cedar on oak.
Planked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Carvel planked, and at some point she. I guess the decks and the cabin top were getting a little soft. They were tongue and groove spruce.
Oh.
And still all original. And Miles ended up putting a thick fiberglass cabin top and decking on, which is basically bomb-proof right now. She is so dry down below. It's very comforting to be down below when it's wet out. Mm-hmm. And that's held her together very nicely over the last. I think that was probably in the 80s at some point. I'm not sure when, but it's still very sound and in good shape.
Okay.
And it actually, people ask me all the time if it's canvas because it's such a nice job.
Yeah. Wow.
So at some point I'm going to have to get after it and put some re-non-skid the top and the decks. But she's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah. So do you guys get out on her for some overnighters and stuff?
We haven't done too much of that. When Korie and I first met, we did some at that point, but she was mostly working on the Adventurous. Yeah. And we chased the Crisser schooner race around up in the islands one year. The Capernaum International Schooner Race, and they allow other boats to tag along and have fun. And
Is that the one they even had our own category, like C class?
Yeah,
was it that race or something else we did? Yeah.
Oh, that was another race, I think. But
we're allowed.
But I've done.
They let us tag along.
Yeah, they let other boats tag along all the time, so it's fun. And we've done some other events around here. This year, Owen keeps talking about getting out on the boat and going out in the waves. So,
cool!
I am planning on getting out there every chance we can this year. I have not done enough sailing in the last couple of years, so I'm very excited. I had a little engine trouble this last fall and was unable to get her out during this wonderful fall season we had last year, and that was hard to take. But I've got the engine all figured out, and we're going to be out on the water this summer.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, and she was a poster boat for the Wooden Boat Festival here in Port Townsend last year.
Yes, she was. Yeah, she was the one on the poster.
Yeah. So was that a drawing? Was that a drawing? A painting
it was a watercolor
painting that somebody did.
Yeah, Clara Cord over on Whidbey Island. In fact, Owen and I just went to visit her on her sheep farm. This last week. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been great. We had her and her husband out on the boat with us, and had Miles and Llewellyn come out.
With Miles too. So, that was fun.
Yeah, a bunch of celebrities on the boat for the festival, which was fun.
Cool.
But yeah, we hadn't even known she had done the painting or submitted it for.
Oh, you didn't?
For the contest, and Tupper just happened to be walking through the chandlery one day, and Owen and I were out at the playground, and he came back and he's like, "Hey, there's a painting of Sharon L that's eligible for the boat festival poster."
Really?
So, yeah.
Was that off of a photograph she had or something?
Exactly. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and Mount Baker's in the background.
Did she take the photograph herself?
I believe so. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
At the festival or something? Or? You guys didn't even know.
Well,
she took the photo.
the two people in the cockpit, we're pretty sure. Well, we know they're not us, but we're pretty sure that it was our neighbor David who came out sailing with us. What race was that? Was that the Shipwright Regatta?
No, that was the Classic Mariners.
The Classic Mariners Regatta. Must have been 1 or 2 years before so that she had probably taken the picture then. And so we think it's David in the picture. We don't know who the woman in the pink coat and hat is.
Oh, you don't?
I know it's not me because I don't own anything pink. and I don't. We had a couple other friends on board that weekend, but I don't think either of them wear pink either. So
that's funny.
We're not really sure who it is. We think Tupper's down below with Owen as a baby, though.
Okay.
I had to work that day, so he needed to bring some crew, and so he must have been doing a diaper change or something. So unfortunately, he's not in the poster.
That's all right. It's a wonderful rendering.
Very
really
cool.
Beautiful.
Korie got a really nice matting done, and it's hanging in our kitchen. And
nice.
It's very beautiful. I really like it.
She just got the details perfect.
Cool.
So.
Very cool. Yeah. So we're going to wrap it up here. For people listening that have some interest in sailing and sail training and wooden boats, what would you tell them? Let's start with you, Korie. Any words of wisdom?
Well, if they're locals here, there's lots of opportunities to get involved with small boat sailing. I know down in the Seattle area, up here in Port Townsend, the Maritime Center has amazing.
All around.
Yeah.
Puget Sound especially.
As far as big boats go, which I have more experience with, so I know it's intimidating to get involved, but it's so easy to do it. So don't put it off. And I had thought I needed to have a teaching degree and or boating experience, and I really didn't have to have either. So they'll teach you as you go. It's an amazing and forgiving industry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And a lot to learn, probably.
Yeah.
How about you, Tupper? Anything else?
There's plenty of opportunity to get involved in boating. I would just sit. We're sitting right across from the Maritime Center, the Northwest Maritime Center here. That is a wonderful place to go down, and most of the people there are quite knowledgeable, and there's quite a few programs that anybody can get involved with over there, and just to be around the water. If you love being on the water, then there's no reason not to be out on it.
Yeah, right. Very good. Okay, well, thanks for your time today.
Well, thank you.
Korie and Tupper. Korie's actually off with Owen right now, but I'll say goodbye to you, Tupper. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks. And for Korie. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Korie, Tupper, and Owen for meeting me in Port Townsend doing the interview. That was really fun. Really had a great time with you guys. You've got a gorgeous boat and a great story to tell. So thanks again for doing that. And Owen, I hope you have a blast growing up on boats with your parents. How cool is that? Okay, if you'd like to connect with me, actually I would love it if you would connect with me. One way you could do that is go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail and leave me a message. Give me some feedback about the podcast. Tell me what you're thinking about building. Just give me some wooden boat fodder to mess with. That would be awesome. You can also go to my website where I publish show notes each week along with the podcast and some pictures. And you can leave a comment there. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest if you look for Wooden Boat Dan. And you can email me pictures and stories, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. If you like the show also, you can go to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. That would be very cool. And if you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/Amazon and make a purchase there, I get paid a small commission. Or if you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/JD, that takes you to Jamestown Distributors, which is a boat and marine supplier. And if you make a purchase there, I get paid a little bit also. Appreciate your support. I'm considering adding a donation or a tip jar to my website so that if you wanted to make a small contribution to help support what I do, you could do that without having to buy anything. So thanks again for listening in. It's been great to have you. Get in the game if you're not in. It's a lot of fun. And come back next week for another fix. Keep the bright side up and the barnacled side down. This is Wooden Boat Dan, over and out. God bless. Have a great week.